Hello and welcome to Health Matters on Channels Television. Thanks for joining us. I am Mary Alale Yusuf. It's the Harmattan season, and the typical markers of coolness, dryness and dustiness can be seen and felt, even in the southern parts of the country where the effects are milder. Harmattan is a cool, dry wind that blows from the Sahara Desert and is strongest from late November to mid-March. It usually carries large amounts of dust, which it can move hundreds of miles out over the Atlantic Ocean. The dust often interferes with local aircraft operations. However, it's not only flying machines that the weather affects. It could be a trigger for adverse health circumstances. There are respiratory, skin, and even heart issues that could arise or worsen. Paying closer attention and caring a bit more for these aspects of health is not doing too much. My guest is the Provost, College of Health Sciences, University of Abuja, and Secretary General of the Association of Provosts of Colleges of Medicine of Nigeria, APCOM. Professor Titus Ibekwe is also a consultant ENT head and neck surgeon. He joins us virtually from Abuja. You're welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you, Mary.
So in this season, we've observed so much coughing, sniffling, sneezing, but these are not always just simple sneezing because it's dry or it's cold. People actually get infected, get really sick. Why are people so susceptible to illnesses in this weather?
Thank you very much. I also want to commend your intro. As usual, you normally conduct your research very well. The intro has said a lot of things already. When we dissect what exactly Harmattan is all about and how it comes about. So that will do half of the job for us. As you rightly said, this is usually very severe northeast wind originating from Sahara within this period, which were well enumerated. And for obvious reasons, a lot of particles are blown into the air beyond conventional dust. We know that this comes with a lot of microorganisms ranging from viruses. We know that viruses, when they're outside the body, they become inanimate. So they're just there, like sand or any other substance that does not assume life. So all of them are blown up, including bacteria, including fungal spores, hitherto that are also lying there as dry seeds. All these things are in the air, and beyond the contents of this air, we also know that the humidity drops very low, even sometimes up to just 5 millimeter mercury. It goes as low as that. So the cumulative effect is what leads to the various problems and the adverse effects that we all feel during Harmattan. And let's not forget that usually early in the morning is cold, but in the midday afternoon, it becomes very hot. So these are extremes of weather also that affect both our external and internal organs, So if we take it from this perspective, I think we'll be able to understand why we have all these problems and how we can tackle them one by one, preventive measures that we can take in order to ensure that we're all well protected. So as I said, both the external organs and the internal organs are not spared. And when there is imbalance in the functionality of any of the organs in our body, we become sick, either as a temporary measure or even within a prolonged period. So these are the issues. That's exactly what happens during Harmattan and why we see people getting sick. The ear, the nose, the throat, these are conduit pipes, from outside that connects into our system. We ingest food through the mouth. We breathe through the nose. It goes into the lung and circulates into the whole system. So the air we are breathing now is quote unquote polluted air within this period, with all these particles and particulates that we have already enumerated. And that is what happens. So we tend to inhale a lot of microorganisms within this period, which will lead to respiratory tract infections, of different magnitudes, both viruses, fungal, and even bacterial infections. So you realize that they abound within this period. So that's why you see a lot of people coughing, a lot of people itching, a lot of people sneezing within Harmattan time. And even the external organs, as I said, are affected. The largest organ in the body, external organ, is the skin. What Harmattan does to our skin is a story that is obvious to each and every one of us. It dries the skin the more. The skin becomes very dry. And individuals who have naturally dry skins are most predisposed, within this period. And what does that lead to? It will increase their tendency towards drying up. The skin becomes more dry.
Let me
They'll start
quickly
itching.
ask a question here, Prof.
Yes, please.
Would the simple exercise of wearing a mask shield us? Shield shouldn't be the word now. Be a barrier between us and these organisms. Since you said some of these viruses are just lying there, waiting to come alive again once they hit a nice warm body.
Yes, Mary, is one of the preventive measures, clearly, because the mask is a filter, so it tends to filter the particles in the air. That may not be 100%, but it will reduce the coarse particles. We're able to take them off from our taking them in, and at least the quantum of organism and the irritants that we inhale will be reduced to the minimal level, most minimal level, that may not get us sick. So if you see people wearing masks during Harmattan period, or if you're out there outside the country and you see people during winter wearing masks, it's not as if they're trying to shield their identity. It's just that these people understand what is happening around them. And certain individuals are more predisposed than others. Individuals who have chronic respiratory illnesses, like people who are asthmatic, people who have cardiac diseases, people naturally who have lowered immunity due to one disease or the other they are suffering from.
Sorry, can I pause you there for a second?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what I cannot wrap my head around. How is it that this weather is worse for cardiovascular diseases? Cardiovascular accidents and, myocardial infarctions. What's the connection?
Yes. You see, as I was just explaining, the lung and the heart, they coexist and work together. So once the lung is diseased and the lung is unable to perform its functions optimally, okay, it has a way of having a reflux back and affecting the heart. Okay? And the subminimal performance of the lung will also affect the heart from performing its function. And the heart is just like the engine of the entire organs because it pumps the blood that circulates round. Okay, the tendency that we'll have cardiac diseases and all those, increases within this period, including cardiacs and associated diseases and illnesses. So that's just the simple explanation. The connectivity between these organs, says it all. So within this period, yes, people who have all these comorbidities, even people who are diabetic, who have the tendency of getting more infected than others, people of extreme ages, the very elderly and the very young, whose immune level or immune status, are not all that very active or not well developed at this point in time. So they are the most predisposed. This set of people should not shy away from wearing their mask and moving around because you're trying to protect yourself and protect people around you. by doing that.
Okay, let
So
me
that
quickly
explains
ask you about these people with heart conditions or prone to having heart conditions. I'm so glad you've drawn that correlation to the lungs. What can we do for optimal lung function? Because I know breathing in that cold air, it first of all is a shock to the throat. And then if the lungs are not performing optimally, that's where the problem is. How can we make the lungs perform optimally? Is it by using hot liquids or what? I don't know. Just give us an idea, because we wouldn't want somebody who is already hypertensive to become further hypertensive just because it's Harmattan.
Okay, Mary, let's take it this way. The triggers, for instance, for people who are what we call atopic patients, because certain individuals by their genetic constitution are predisposed to allergic reactions, all right? And such individuals, the trigger is usually the allergens. And the allergens are these particles in the air,
Okay.
not just only from plants, flowers, but even particulates from the soil. Okay, and some of these organisms, fungal spores, that are carried around, and viruses. So there is a lot of it. The quantity in the air circulating right now is high. So once you take them in, it triggers this cascade of reactions, okay, which end up being a very fatal one that will lead to, the airway, the caliber of the airway shrinking, because the natural skin, the mucosa, we call it, that is lining this airway, following this cascade of reactions, starts swelling up. Edema forms around there. So you see it closing and narrowing. And that's why people who are having these reactions, you see them performing as people who are having asthmatic attack. Their breathing, it is noisy, and so on and so forth. So number one is what we have talked about, trying to protect yourself as much as possible when you wear your mask to filter out most of these possible allergens that are in the air that you're breathing. Then number two is stay indoors when there is no need, walking around outside as much as possible. And number three, yes, if the air around you is well conditioned, okay, you need to have some warm suitings. Yes, you do that. The taking warm fluids and inhaling steam, it helps. But it's not like as if it is a treatment or a drug per se. All that it does is that it gives a good soothing system, to a soothing to the system. So thereby reducing the tendency of having this constrictive effects in the airways and or the rest of the organs, concerned. And our trying to hydrate very well, Mary, is very, very important at this point in time. Remember that we're losing a lot of moistures, a lot of fluid, due to the dryness of the air and also due to the low humidity. So your body tends to transmit, lose a lot of water. So we should also try to make conscious efforts to drink a lot of water willingly, clear fluid. Consume that as much as possible. You're doing yourself good. And the choice of cream that you're applying on the skin. Remember, I was talking about the skin being the largest organ. It is very, very important. You have to be very selective. You have to protect your skin. You have to clothe and cover well at this point in time to reduce those loss of moistures. So moisturizing cream is highly recommended at this point in time. We know that moisturizing cream, there are two particular elements that they contain, which helps in retaining fluid within the system. Okay, glycerin and urea in abundance in most of the moisturizing cream. Even if that appears to be too expensive for certain individuals, petroleum jelly will also help.
Oh,
You
yes.
apply that off and on. It contains what we call the petrolactum and the tocopherol acetates. All these perform similar functions because it tends to occlude and cover up the pores so that we don't lose too much water. But you have to applying this, often and on. And if you don't do that and you lose a lot of water, as I said, especially for those individuals who naturally have dry skin, what will happen is that you realize that your skin will start cracking, and you see people having even cracked
Prof,
feet and palms.
tell us about a special set of people and how they should protect themselves. I'm talking about people living with sickle cell?
All right. Yeah. They also belong to this category that will be predisposed at this point in time. We know that dehydration is one of the key things that trigger off sickle cell attacks, because the blood becomes more viscous, that's thicker than normal. And once you have this very thick blood, what will happen is that you have sluggish flow through the vessels, especially through the tiny vessels that terminates into the organs where it nourishes and supplies. And once this sluggish flow started happening with thick blood due to dehydration, the tendency is that you have clogging of the the blood the blood cells, the red cells, and the sickle cell. People who have sickle cell disease, their red blood cells are not as resistant as that of other individuals who are AA or who are AS, and this obviously will be a trigger to their having this sickle cell, the cell sickling and clogging and even blocking the vessels. At extreme situations, apart from the conventional sickle cell attack, sickle cell disease, the hand-foot syndrome that I have, the bone pains, and other features that follows this. This can also be a trigger of even individuals having cardiovascular accident, because when these blood vessels that clog so much, and supplies to vital organs such as the brain may have to be cut off. And even it could be a trigger to hearing loss, because recent researches, which we're also part of, has shown that people that have sickle cell anemia are more predisposed to having sensorineural hearing losses, because the blood vessels that supply the cochlea, which is the sensitive organ for hearing, is what we call an end vessel, which means it doesn't have branches, it terminates directly. So once they are clogged, that part of the cochlear system, which serves for hearing, loses its blood supply and apparently becomes sick, and over time, over a short time, can die. And when this happens, it results in hearing loss. So such people need special protection, just like others we have mentioned earlier on. Those who are immunocompromised, or those who have coexisting morbidities, who have chronic respiratory illnesses, they all belong to the same category. They need to be well hydrated, they need to be well protected, they need to be indoors as much as possible to cover up very well at this point in time. But hydration is very, very important, Mary. And they have to also be selective of the type of cream they apply across their body in order to protect well and to also moisturize well.
So please solve this mystery for me. I've known some people, I included, when the Harmattan would come in the north, I would completely lose my voice. I wouldn't be able to speak out. Is there a way of preventing that?
Yeah, all these are interconnected. When we talk about the nose and the throat, they are connected down to both the food passage and the breathing passage. Okay, so the upper part of this breathing passage is the larynx. So wherever air that we're breathing that is going down to the lung will have to pass through this larynx. And larynx is the voice box, Mary. So whatever infection, whatever organism that we are taking in that can affect our lung will have to affect the larynx first. So people tend to develop what we call laryngitis more within this period. Okay, it could be infective, it could be allergic, as the case may be. So once that larynx is inflamed, that's laryngitis, all you have is hoarse voice. The voice becomes hoarse. The voice box becomes thick. So ability to speak out becomes a lot difficult. What is the way out here? To also try as much as possible to protect ourselves from taking in these organisms that could trigger off laryngitis and infections within this voice box, and to hydrate very well, to drink a lot of clear fluid at this point in time is very, very important. So that's the mechanism, that's how it comes about.
Tell us how this affects the eyes and what to do. I know that some people get red eyes and other things, but what's the way out as well?
We talked about external organs, intro and internal organs that are all affected. The eye is one of those. You can see the eyes, they are exposed all the time to the environment for us to be able to see and perceive objects. So they're not shielded with anything, they're open. So the harmattan tend to dry the eye, okay? Make the eye very dry, and once the eye is dry, is predisposed to all forms of inflammation also, keratosis, scleritis.
Let me pause you there, Prof.
And
let me pause you for a second. We have a caller. Okay. Charles is on the line. Hello, Charles.
Good afternoon, madam.
Good afternoon. What's your question?
Okay. From the speaker, he was saying something about hearing noise, something like that. So I want to find out, does it mean, hello?
We can hear you.
So I want to find out, does it mean that the person will not hear clearly? That is, anytime they are talking to the person will be hearing the voice as a noise, or the person will not hear clearly, or the person will be just accidentally hearing noise.
So as a result of Harmattan. Okay, yeah. Doctor, over to you.
Oh, thank you very much, Charles. That wasn't exactly what I said. My explanation was this way, that following Harmattan, if we fail to hydrate, okay, the blood becomes very thick, and we tend to clog some of the tiny blood vessels that supply sensitive organs, including the organ in the ear, which is responsible for interpreting sound that we pick so that we'll be able to hear. And when this happens, there is possibility that we can lose our hearing. What we call sensorineural hearing loss can happen if one is severely dehydrated, or if people that have diseases like sickle cell anemia, have serious attack, that it is possible that is one of the sequelae that can happen following severe complications of sickle cell anemia. When one has sensorineural hearing loss, that means that people are talking, you won't be able to hear normally how you should hear. You may be hearing a little or not at all. Sometimes you may be hearing noise that is not existing in your ears. It could be one of the modes of presentation also. So that's just what we're trying to explain. Not as if to say that it's the harmattan that brings about the noise in the ear. But it can follow this pathway and result in sensorineural hearing loss and possibly noise in the ear, yes.
Thank you very much, Charles. I hope that helps you. And thank you, Prof, for coming on the show. Look at that. Our time is spent because we're having so much fun, but it's time to go now. I have to thank you very much for coming on the show.
Thank you so much, Mary. Well, I want to say this painfully, that we lost the BOT chairman of our association.
Oh.
And we're in mourning that I have to come for this program.
So our thoughts are with you from here as well.
Yeah.
Have a lovely day.
He's the BOT chair of our Foundation for the Sick and Health Education. Right now, things about his burial is on. It's the way of everybody. Thank you so much. I'm glad to be here.
Always a pleasure, sir. And thank you, viewers, at home and wherever you are, all over the world, for listening in. Have a wonderful day. I am Mary Alale Yusuf.